Here we've got a 2020 Jeep Grand Cherokee. This is the Limited X. It's got the factory HID and LED headlights. It's got one single bulb in there. It's a D3S. That's a Bi-Xenon. It's a Vallejo projector. It's got no other replaceable bulbs. The turn signal is located in this corner. That's an LED board, LED array. And then behind this C light is another LED array, which acts as a parking light and a daytime running light. And on the side here, we've got the amber LEDs that shine through the side reflector. Okay, that's a quick rundown of the headlight assemblies. All the Jeep owners, most of them have the halogen headlights. They all want to switch to these. The problem with switching to these is that they're expensive. You can find a used set for about $1,000. You also need a wiring harness. That harness, I believe right now, runs about $650. A lot of times you get the lights used, they have broken tabs, they have issues, you don't know the mileage, you don't really know what you're buying. And if you're buying them new, forget it. I mean, you'll be in for, I believe each assembly without the module and the bulb is around $1,000. Dealership price is definitely much more. All right, so let's say you score a used set, you're still in for about, $1,600 or so, $1,650. Let's just say $1,500 to $2,000, depending on what you score, if you're switching from halogen. Now, this video is actually for the owners of the Jeep Grand Cherokees that have the factory HID or Xenon. Those are used interchangeably. And at this point, they want to upgrade their headlights. And what that means is the headlights seem noticeably dimmer. They're just not performing as well. And they want to know what to upgrade to. There's only two upgrade options, okay? You can change out the HID bulb, or you can switch to the Morimoto XB LED assemblies. It's a full LED assembly that we'll go over in just a moment. Those are the two options. The bulb change, depending on what you buy, could be $100, $200. If you get some kind of aftermarket bulbs, yeah, they'll be 50, 60 bucks, but I guarantee you they're junk and they will not perform, they will not last, and they won't be as consistent over time. Essentially, it's just it's a temporary fix and you won't have any better performance. Forget about using LED bulbs in these. Anybody who says the LED bulbs work in the D3S system hasn't tested true premium Osram or Philips bulbs. So throw that idea out the window. I don't care if your buddy told you about that. It's not a good idea, okay? So in this video, we'll compare the two upgrade options. This model year is it's a 2020. It's got almost 44,000 miles. So this is the time when the original owner starts noticing the headlights aren't quite as good. Or the second owner picks it up and says, hey, I want to change the color of the bulbs. I want to do something different. I want to upgrade the lights because they seem dim. And HID bulbs, just like your brake pads or your tires, they do wear out over time. They're not, going to last forever. These may last 5 to 10 years, but they will become dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. And D3S is a eco-friendly type of thing. It's got an igniter built into it. It is an expensive bulb to purchase. I believe the options that we have, they can run up to $260 for the CBBs. And my point being is you have to pay a decent amount of money to change them. The other option is the Morimoto XB LEDs. They run $1,800 for the set. And a lot of owners are sort of questioning, hey, is it worth to change the factory Bi-Xenons to the Morimoto XB LED? And this is what that video is about. I'm going to help you decide how to spend your money, essentially, and I'll give you fair and unbiased feedback. We sell all the products that I'm going to be showing you today. However, we want to help you make the best choice. That's all it really comes down to. So I've got the Morimoto XB LED headlights right here. It's a full LED assembly, meaning it's got no replaceable bulbs whatsoever. And that's how true LED assemblies are. Okay, they don't have any replaceable bulbs. People get concerned about that. They do have a replaceable computer on the back, but they don't have any replaceable bulbs. So once something goes wrong, yes, you have a full failure, but that is exactly how the brand new Jeep Grand Cherokee is made as well. And all the factory equipped LED vehicles, they're all like that. Once something fails, you'll have to replace the whole assembly. It is a scary time we're going into, but the notion is these products will last you a very long time. I've also got two other options here, okay? The CBI, which is very popular, and we got the Osram Nightbreaker laser, okay? There is a CBI next gen, not much has changed. I've got these in single package, so I'll break open a brand new box of bulbs and I'll compare the two options with a model year, you know, with a bulb that's 4 years old and 44,000 miles essentially. Now, that bulb isn't always on, but you know, after 3-4 years, we do recommend you change out the HID bulbs, whether you want to believe that or not. Most people wait until they die, but in this video, I'll show you what difference the HID bulbs make and then what difference the full assemblies make. So I'll do all the work for you. You just have to follow along. This video will take a little bit. It'll be essentially an overview on how to install these, what to expect, some tips and some tricks, and that's what we'll get into right now. Let's start off with the features of the original headlight assemblies. Again, everybody loves this look, that sea light. Jeep did a nice job with the design. That looks really seamless. It looks really, really good overall. That is the parking light mode. I'm by myself right now. We're in the shop. It would be hard for me to show you the daytime running light mode. It is brighter than that. Okay, it's probably twice as bright as that. What I do notice when I see these Jeep Grand Cherokees on the road, the daytime running lights are a little choppy. It's a little hard to see, especially from like far away. Camera's not really picking it up. Maybe it's just the daytime running light mode, but you know, that is something to take note. So this is the parking light mode. When the parking lights are on, that side amber is on also. When the turn signal is on, the only thing that comes on is kind of like a reverse, you know, like a reverse C, essentially. I mean, that is a C, but on this side, it's the opposite. Now, it's a cool design too. I like how they integrated it. It's definitely super bright. From further away, it kind of just looks like a regular bulb, essentially, because it all kind of blends in, but it is bright, it is effective, and I like the way they tied that in. And same with these lights, by the way. I know I mentioned, and I hope I didn't scare anybody, if something was to fail, there's no replaceable bulb here. You can't replace the parking light. You can only replace that D3S bulb. All right, so that's the turn signal. So keep in mind with HID, it takes a few seconds to fully warm up and color shift, okay, because it starts off a bluish. And a factory HID bulb is rated at about 4,300 Kelvin. As the bulb ages, it changes color, okay? It weakens in intensity and it color shifts to essentially a cool white. At the end of its life, it's almost like a violet color. And you can see sometimes they eventually turn pink and just die. Okay, so the color looks kind of really, like especially the way the camera's picking it up, it looks kind of like a cool white. Up close, I can definitely see the difference. What I do notice a lot is these lights are really clean, but a lot of the lamps with higher mileage, they're gonna have a lot of lens burn right here, so it gets very cloudy. That detracts from performance. And if we get in there, we can see, you can see what the lenses are. Like they have dimples on them, and that's to diffuse the cutoff a little bit. And I'll show you a picture of the output very, very soon. And that's what we'll get into. But essentially, apologize, it's very windy. There's a storm outside. Essentially, that's what we're seeing, okay? And what I have in my hand is a lux meter. Okay, you can take multiple lux measurements. We're just going to take the lux measurement right underneath the cutoff. I do this stuff in real time. I'm not messing around. I want to show you a genuine and fair comparison of anything that I showcase on this channel. So I have a lux meter. I'm going to turn off the warehouse lights in just a moment, and I'm going to walk up to the wall. We're going to analyze the beam pattern together, okay? Again, remember, 44,000 miles, okay? The camera's going to pick up things a little bit differently than what I'm seeing. Okay, but I'll tell you about what I'm seeing, okay? In person, the driver's side is a little bit more violet. It's a little bit dimmer. Without even measuring, I haven't measured this yet, I can tell you that most likely the driver's side is weaker. HID bulbs, projectors, lenses, everything wears at different rates, okay? You're never going to have a fully symmetrical, fully uniform setup. I don't care if it's retrofit, I don't care if it's factory. I deal with this every single day. You're not going to have something that's completely perfect side to side. Other than that, I mean, they look pretty even. The beams look straight, the beams look good. By the way, we're exactly at 25 feet. You can compare your measurements against mine if you'd like to, but take it with a grain of salt. Use my comparison and what I do on this channel just for the stuff that we do, okay? There's always going to be somebody that's unhappy with what I'm doing, but I can't please everybody, okay? I'm taking time to show everybody what's going on. I've got the lux meter in my hand. The point where I measure the cutoff is essentially right where it's going to be shining down the road, and it's right underneath the hotspot, right underneath the cutoff essentially, okay? And you can see it weakens as we go down. So as a strong point, as a maximum intensity point on the driver's side, I'm seeing about 330 lux or so, okay? Walk over to the, step back just so you can see what the beams look like. Walk over to the passenger side, okay? And my suspicions were correct. It's as if I do this every single day, and I do. Check it out. So we got about, I almost saw about 400 lux. So just a little bit stronger, but I was able to kind of see that. So let's call it, you know, just under 400, 390 something, okay? 395, 396. That was the strongest point. That's pretty good. I mean, it's not terrible. There's nothing wrong with these lights, but I can tell that they're a little bit tired and they could use a boost. So let's take off the front end and install some new bulbs, and we'll see what happens next. So I've popped the hood and I've also cut the wheel, and I'll tell you exactly why, okay? Use a flathead to remove all these little tabs, okay? I'm gonna go over here, remove all these. Technically for the bumper, you just need to remove these two. However, remove these, and I'll show you why in a little bit. Okay, so you got 3 or 4 on each side, plus the 2 in the center, I don't know. Let's say about 10 altogether. And on the side, when they assemble this car, when they build it, they happen to use a one-time use rivet. So these will get drilled out. This model with the painted fender trim is a little bit of a pain in the butt. And I'll show you why. The other one is a little bit easier. You just unhook the black molding, and then you have more access to it. This kind of hooks underneath it. It might be hard to demonstrate on video because I'm by myself, and you can even see they use a adhesive to hold this on, which is stupid because I'll have to do the same thing, clean it up and add some more adhesive, but essentially that's what we're doing, and I'll show you what I do on the bottom, but let me take care of this first, okay? There's also one 10 millimeter that sits behind there. You kind of pull this back and unhinge it. Now this is interesting because I'm doing this one-handed, by the way. You essentially pull the bumper out and hold this down, otherwise this whole piece just starts coming apart. And then you kind of unlock it. There's like a little locking tab in here. Again, hard to do one-handed, but take my word for it, you'll unlock it. Once you unhinge it, because it's kind of, the bumper and this piece kind of join up right here. It's, again, strange design. Not a huge fan of it because it's tough to work with, but once you get the bumper unhooked from the fender trim, because it's kind of glued in and all taped in and kind of all riveted in, once you get unhooked, then you can push this forward, but we'll move to the bottom first and take off these screws. I think there's only a few tabs actually, let's see. So on the other model, there's these tabs that you just take off. I believe there's like 6 of them. And on the model with the different bumper, like the sport design bumper, you do have a few plastic tabs that you need to remove right in the middle. I believe there's 4. There's also one of these in each wheel well. It's right down at the end of the fender trim. Now, I was actually wrong. You actually have to press this kind of, you actually kind of have to lift up this piece first. It's kind of unconventional. And press this in, okay? Kind of doing it backwards now to release this one tab, okay? Because that tab is what holds the fender tight to the bumper. So you kind of have to squeeze them apart just to squeeze this through. Then you can lift it forward and you're ready to slide off the bumper cover. Set your bumper aside. You can put it on the ground, whatever you need to do. Make sure it doesn't get scratched up. Before the bumper comes off, you gotta remove the fog light connector. It's actually the same H11 connector for both the standard bumper and the sport design bumper. There are 2 screws holding down this. Essentially, it's a bumper kind of, it's a headlight bracket that goes on the headlight, but it holds up the bumper. It's a bumper support. So you got 2 10 millimeters down below, one 10 millimeter here, And the reason why I asked you to loosen up all these, you lift up the tab. You don't have to take all this off. Don't remove any of this. Remove that top 10 millimeter and the light will slide right out. Now, if you're just changing HID bulbs, all you need to do is take off the air box, super easy. It's 1/8 millimeter connection. You pop off this hose, you unclip it, it comes off, and then you pull the air box out. Then you have full access to the headlight. On the passenger side, you can unclip this module, give yourself a little bit of space. I warn you, it's tight, it's difficult. Jeep does provide a headlight access cover, but it is really tough to go in through there. I usually kind of attack it from both ways. I'll take this cover off and then take off the cap to the headlight assembly. If I'm just replacing bulbs, take a picture, remove the bulb, take a picture, make sure everything looks solid before I try to reinsert the bulb. A lot of people install the bulb wrong, especially if you go to the dealership. They're just unqualified. They will pop a bulb in, make sure it turns on, they'll send you on your way. They won't make sure that it's seated properly, performance is correct. And remember, always replace the bulbs in pairs. In this video, we'll just show you how the HID system performs with the new bulbs, but we'll ultimately be installing the Morimoto assemblies. All right, driver's side headlight is going to be our testing unit for the new bulbs, so we can have a constant. If you recall, the passenger side was brighter anyway, so makes for a good test subject. This is with the cap removed that just, twist counterclockwise. Again, there are no replaceable bulbs in this assembly. There's a module on the bottom. If you have the AFS, that's the adaptive lights, they turn with the steering wheel, you'd have a module there, but there are no other modules. To remove the bulb, you'll unclip the igniter connector, and then if you look in there, there is a metal tab, okay? That's the locked position. That's the unlocked position. That's the only way that bulb is coming out. Properly, at least, right? All right, take a note of this, okay? Because a lot of people, they have problems. You're doing this by feel if you're doing it in the engine bay. That's why I almost recommend removing the headlight assembly to replace the bulbs. You don't need to, and I don't usually, but I know what I'm doing, and even I struggle with this sometimes, okay? See how these little metal fingers are laid out? They're still in the shape of a square, okay? Once you put the bulb in wrong, it's very easy to bend these tabs, okay? And the bulb will never seat right. So once you start bending these tabs and you're putting it all crooked, it never seats right and never locks in. And remember, this is the unlocked position. You can see the two tabs, and then it locks by you turning that clockwise, okay? And that's how the bulb seats and locks into place. You'll know when it's locked. You turn on the lights and you wanna make sure that the performance is uniform throughout the beam pattern, okay? Factory bulb on the left, premium bulb on the right. These Osram night breakers, you don't find those at dealerships. They don't sell bulbs like that. Osram makes these sort of for the novelty market, for the aftermarket. This is a premium bulb. XNN stands for Extreme Night Breaker Laser Next Gen. Now we're on the XNN, okay? HBI, I believe that stands for High Beam Intense. Osram makes the original bulbs, and Osram makes the bulbs that we sell and recommend. Why do you think we recommend them? Because they perform, they last, they're consistent. Don't fall into the trap of getting this junk on Amazon, the D3S bulbs. I don't care who it's by. It can be by the best aftermarket manufacturer. It does not hold a candle to the reliability, the performance, and what you expect from an Osram product. All right, driver's side's got that new D3S Osram XNN bulb, okay? I've got my lux meter in my hand. Haven't walked up to the wall and tested anything. Gonna walk into this as unbiased as possible. Lowered the phone exposure. Okay, I'm just recording on my iPhone. What's the first thing you see? Look how much fuller that hotspot is with the brand new bulb. This is after 40,000 miles. Most owners think everything is fine, the light bulbs are working good, I don't have to replace them. If you want to restore your lighting performance and you have factory xenon bulbs, replace those bulbs. It's a wear and tear item, just like your brake pads, your tires, okay? You're changing the oil, right? Once a year, maybe less. Change out the HID bulbs every, 2 to 3 years. The color, even in person, it looks pretty similar, but I can see the right side almost looks a little faded. And even though it's a 4,300 Kelvin on the driver's side, as well as the passenger side, the driver's side just seems fuller and brighter, and it doesn't have that pale look to it, okay? Before I do the lux test, let's see what it looks like from the front. They look pretty similar. I don't think it looks that different. But again, the factory projector is a little cloudy at this point. It's a little hard to see. Anyway, lux meter is going. These have been on for at least a minute or two, so they're fully warmed up. We like to test bulbs when they're in their steady state. And if you have a keen eye, again, you can kind of see what's going on with the system here. And remember, on the passenger side, we were hitting about, what was it? About 390 something lux, right? So let's see what we hit here. All right, right in our hotspot area, we're at about 540 lux, 45, 550, wow, nice. Yep, we hit a max lux of about 575 lux. I'll do the math later, but that's the boost we can tell. And what's nice about this comparison doing on the driver's side, the weaker of the two, we don't have any overlap from the passenger side. So it's as fair as it can be, and I'm showing you right in real time what to expect from a set of bulbs. If your expectations are greater than this, then your expectations are unrealistic, and maybe you should change over to the Morimotos, because they will be brighter. I've installed, I don't know, 5 or 6, 7, 8 sets on site already, and they've always been brighter than the factory setup. Now, we'll see how much brighter, and we'll see what to expect. But again, big pricing difference. I'll leave pricing to these bulbs that I'm using in the description. That's what you can expect from the Osram Nightbreaker laser on your Jeep Grand Cherokee. Next up is the Osram CBI. This is a very popular bulb. This bulb is not as bright as the Nightbreaker Next Gen laser. It is the most neutral bulb in the lineup. It's not as warm, but it doesn't have any cool blue, despite what the name stands for. The name stands for Cool Blue Intense. It's not. People get them, they're a little disappointed. This is our neutral white option, and this is the best option that we recommend for customers that don't want too warm but don't want too cool white. So in this comparison, we'll be using these two bulbs. The next option would be Osram CBB, and that would be the one that has a lot of cool white to it, and you start losing performance in that point. So this video is about a performance comparison, and when it comes to performance, the Nightbreaker is king, but I'll show you what the CBI looks like as well. Here's the CBI. It really doesn't look much different inside the light, because the factory projector, it has those dimples in it. It's surrounded by the C light. When people want a cool white match to the factory LED fogs, I always tell them to go for the CBB, but it comes at a compromise. Color comes at a compromise. Once you start adding more color temperature to an output, you compromise the output, okay? So this is the CBI, and it's already casting a much different hue. I can tell that the hotspot really isn't quite as large, quite as good. And there is more of a contrast between the two colors now. Let me stand in front of the driver's side. Okay, anything can look bright. You can make anything look bright. Right now the camera adjusted so it looks really bright, but it's all relative. And now let's take a look at the color difference as I cover up the passenger side. And you can see we finally introduced a little bit of a neutral white color. It's not quite cool white, but it's not quite kind of warmish and pinkish. So it all depends what you're expecting, but I do see a difference in person. Got my lux meter in my hand, and we're walking up to the wall. Again, real time, guys. I'm not gonna sit here. I was never good at editing videos, but I'm trying my best to give a good representation. If you remember, we saw the biggest hotspot area kind of off to the right, and we're just not getting those high numbers that we were with Nightbreaker. Okay, I think our maximum is right at about 500. Still, huge boost over the stock Warren bulb, but not quite as good as the Nightbreaker Next Gen. Okay. You can see the color difference now. Again, you're looking at kind of like a palish pinkish color on the right. That's the original bulb. Again, 44,000 miles compared to the CBI. The Next Gen, I believe, is even a tiny bit cooler in terms of color, because they probably got sick of people getting upset with the color, but the CBI has been the same for like, I don't know, 10 plus years. It's a solid bulb. It's definitely a solid go-to. Again, the CBB is really for the people that really want that cool white look, but you start, the performance is trade-off. The trade-off is performance. You can actually see the difference between the colors here. All right, we're leaving HID behind. It was a fun test. Definitely packed with knowledge, and it's validated between what I just did. It doesn't matter who says what now, okay? The proof is in the numbers. I've showed you how it looks. We got the Morimoto assemblies here, okay? These fit all the models between, I believe, 14 and 22. Some models are straighter on the bottom. This bumper, you know, it had the cutout for this, so we're gonna remove this washer nozzle. This car does not come with the factory washer nozzles. I'm going to remove this. I'll show you what the backside looks like. We got that LED computer I was talking to you about. If something was to fail with the low and high beams, this does control, and Morimoto can send a replacement, or they'll just replace the light for you. It's got a little relay. Jeeps are finicky when it comes to aftermarket add-ons. Even though this model is equipped with the factory LED headlights, this comes with a relay to prevent any issues on the halogen models, and that is for the turn signal. And they come plug and play, ready for the multi-pin connection, which is on this Jeep right here, or the halogen connection. So I'm actually going to be removing this, and I'll show you what's next. It actually comes with two harnesses for Morimoto. One is a fuse tap. This controls the daytime running lights, essentially. It gives power to everything. So as soon as the car is keyed on, the LED strip will turn on. That is different than the factory daytime running lights, because on the halogen model, it runs through the low beams, which is easy to turn off, but that just burns through bulbs, which people don't really quite understand. So we'll go right to the fuse box. And this is direct power for the turn signal relay, I believe. So it's giving the lights 100% power when it needs them. And I'll show you where those get hooked up, but it's super easy to route them. You start on the passenger side and get everything set up. I've routed both cables to the fuse box area. Super straightforward. The one with this fuse goes directly to the terminal right here for the fuse box. It's a 13mm. The out of circuit, it's a 10 amp fuse, and it's the third one in from the, let's see if we can get this out. Anyway, it's the third one off. It's in Morimoto's instructions. There's 3 10 amp fuses right here. You put it there. I'm gonna kind of fold this out of the way. It'll be hard to close the fuse box unless you sort of close it right on the red. You can create a little notch there. That's probably ideal. And that way it goes through smoothly. Okay, but that's the gist of hooking up to the fuse box. Super straightforward. All right, so I hooked up those 2 harnesses that ran to the fuse box on the left-hand side, just loosely set everything up. Driver's side still has to be done. The zip ties aren't even tight yet. I just wanted to make sure I had enough slack. And one thing that we want to do is try to set this up or mark your wall before you get started. I should have mentioned that. You want to put the light in, make sure it fits, make sure it turns on, make sure all the functions work before you put that bumper cover back on, okay? And I kind of situated it the same way as stock. This is sort of like the stock adjustment for height, and if you loosen up that 10mm, you can get some sway out of it. So I put it in the same position, okay, but I needed a little bit of further fine tuning, and there is actually an adjuster all the way down there, okay? You use a Phillips head screwdriver and you turn that gear to get the height to change. But, all right, without even taking out my lux meter, going over all the functions with you, let's just take a look at the difference, okay? Just see where we are. Let's be realistic about this. Let's see what we're talking about here, okay? That's the full LED. You got triple beams on the left-hand side versus the worn out, you know, it's not super old. There are plenty of other Jeep owners that have double the mileage, triple the mileage, way over in the six figures in terms of mileage. So, you know, you could have a 14 that's 10, 11 years old, and you've already got 150,000 miles on it, and it's definitely time to change something. So your assemblies could be even further worn down. Sometimes the projector's burned up, and even if you put a new bulb in, there's not much you can do. If any part of your factory assembly goes bad, you have to replace it, and that's a $1,000 assembly without any modules. So we'll go over later whether or not this is worth it, but just take a look at the difference with the Morimoto assemblies. There's nobody that can tell us that the Morning XB LED headlights aren't the best upgrade for the Jeep Grand Cherokee. There's just nothing else that compares. The cutoff, the triple beams, we'll go over everything in a little bit. We'll go over all the features and functions. I'll test everything before I solidify this, but I will be moving on to the passenger side next, and I'll get everything buttoned up, and then we'll go over some some features essentially of what's to expect with these assemblies. But that is a serious boost in my opinion. The hotspot is larger. It's still very much right underneath the cutoff. There is not a ton of foreground added. It looks really good. I was just testing the turn signal function to make sure that they have it set up now so it's sequential. You don't have to change anything. I like sequential. They also have a standard mode where the whole top flashes without that sequencing effect. And then I thought to myself, let me check the fitment. I always like to check how it seats up to the fender. And check out that fitment, okay? You might say there's a little bit of gap on top. However, I haven't touched the passenger side. Car's never had an accident. I can definitely tell. I work with cars every single day. The bumper has never been removed from what I can tell. The headlight has not been removed. And we got the same type of gap on the passenger side. So the fitment is just like stock. You get better functions. Let's compare that turn signal. The turn signal is different, but it's just as bright, if not brighter. Okay, so a lot of aftermarket assemblies, they might look like the factory LED style, but the turn signal's weak, the output's weak, the DRL is not true DRL brightness. Lots of compromises when it comes to headlight assembly. So you might say, oh, $1,800, that's a lot of money. It is, but the factory assemblies, just bare without any modules, are about $1,000 each. Okay, puts you in the same position. You know, you want a car that's loaded up with features, well, guess what? You have to pay for it eventually when something goes bad. So, not trying to justify anything, I'm just trying to give you perspective, and it's all relative in terms of costs on how you look at this upgrade. Also, Morimoto gives you these filler strips, depending on which bumper you have. This vehicle is white. You'd basically be able to see kind of through it. It's an interesting thing because I feel like they should have just integrated this strip into the design, but you just tack it on. It's adhesive, and that way you don't have any see-through issues. Now, I'm ready to install this light. I've got my cabling bunched up and zip tied off to the side, and it's running over. I've trimmed up all the excessive zip ties on this side. Actually, got a few more over here. I tightened up the wiring, and essentially I'll make my final connections. I'll get this installed, and it's almost ready to go. Once you've got both lights installed, you got the low beams on, make sure everything is lining up, you've done a quick adjustment, okay? Make sure the functions work with the engine running. These vehicles are set up differently once the engine's running and there are signals, and the system checks for faults and errors. Make sure you check that everything is working, you're not getting hyper flashing, and all the functions are properly working, okay? So low, high beam parking light, daytime running light. Okay, and finally do a daytime running light. Yeah, that's bright. Crazy bright. Okay, and finally will be the parking light. But I'm gonna button this up. This is ready to go back together. All right, slipped the bumper on by myself. I didn't show this part because it was difficult to film, obviously. I put a little bit of piece of tape here, cleaned it with alcohol, and made sure to stick it on really, really well. Cleaned it, heated it up. Another note is we drilled out those rivets before. I'm gonna be using these. You can look up this part number if you want on Amazon. It's a little rivet. It's a push-in, okay? And what you'll do is just slip it in like that. So we got 2 per side, 10 millimeter. We got the tab that you just clock in, a few push tabs on the bottom, and just what you removed off the top. So just repeat it in reverse. And we'll be ready to show off the app in just a moment. All right. You've made it this far. Either watching because you wanted a quick overview on how to install your assemblies with some tips and some tricks, or you just wanted to see what the performance gain was. Appreciate you hanging in there. If you just wanted to see potentially what you can gain from changing to the XP LED assemblies or just changing out your HID bulbs. If it's the HID bulbs, I've probably lost you already. However, let's take a look at these lights. They're fully installed. Again, I apologize for the wind. It's pretty crazy out there. That is the fit and finish of the assemblies. I'll turn them on for you and go over all the features. I'll show you the startup feature. As soon as you cue your ignition on, essentially you'll have the startup feature. All the projectors slowly turn on and then turn off. This is our daytime running light mode. I've went into the settings. I've turned off the factory daytime running lights. Anytime the ignition is keyed on, basically these LEDs turn on, okay, the LED strip. That is our full power LED strip. That's for daytime use. It's exceptionally bright. It's insane how bright it is. Super visible. And again, a lot of aftermarket assemblies just don't have the brightness in terms of daytime running lights. They might give you a daytime running light, but it's nowhere near the brightness of what Morimoto is giving you. So true daytime running light brightness, but also very uniform. It's not super spotty. I mean, the camera picks it up kind of funny, but as you walk away a few feet, you are just amazed about how bright it is. Here's our parking light mode. If you want to drive around with your fogs on, which I see some Jeep owners do, you'll have the amber on the side as well as a reduced brightness LED strip. What's funny is that pretty much matches the factory brightness in terms of the LED strip. It's very uniform and it looks really good. So that's our parking light mode. You can keep the lights on in auto. I'm just going over all the settings with you and showing you the features and the functions. Next up is our sequential turn signal option. Again, you can run the standard. We're going to be running the sequential here. It just looks really cool. Just the top portion of the LED strip changes to amber. Still super visible. So far we've got a lot of great features in terms of upgrades. At this point, we've got our low beams on. So triple bi-LED projectors. That's really what's giving you this really high-end performance. If you're coming from the halogen lights, your jaw is probably dropping, but your jaw should be dropping too if you're coming from the factory Bi-Xenons. I mean, this is really cool. The way that they designed this, it looks really high-end, and we'll see the performance in a moment, but you can check out these assemblies, they're awesome. All right, the wind died down a little bit. Excuse the wind. But this is what we're here for. You're spending all this money, you want lights that perform just as good as they look. We've went over the looks, we've went over the features. It's really up to you to decide, is this worth it? You know, they're right on the money in my opinion. They perform just as good as they look. And even if you don't like the way they look, for some reason, if you don't like the way they look, you can't deny that the performance is amazing. The vehicle's in the same spot. I try to, keep everything under a controlled, situation. That way we can get accurate results in this, testing. I've got the lux meter in my hand. I didn't go through all the video because I've been working alone, but I believe we were high 300s on the passenger side. That was the good side, and then somewhere in the 500s with a new Osram bulb. See, as we get lower, that's exactly what's supposed to happen. You don't want lights that light up your foreground. Okay, right by the hot spot, right under the cutoff is where you want your sweet spot to be. Okay, so even then, we're nearly double what the Osram night breakers can do, okay? Yeah, it's a little bit more than double the cost of upgrading the bulbs. You still have to install the lights. But these XB LED lights are legit. I've known they're legit. I've installed many of them. I'm always amazed when I install them. But we have a lot of people wondering, hey, is this worth it? That's up to you to decide. I hope this review was helpful to people that are changing over to new assemblies and just wanted a few tips and tricks. I hope it's helpful to the people that are considering new bulbs. And I hope it's helpful for the people considering new assemblies. You know, and if you can, please support us. Order from our website. There'll be a link below. Subscribe to the channel, spread the word. Always try to do unbiased reviews and do them to the best of our abilities. And I think for the Jeep XB LED lights, this is as good as it gets for the Grand Cherokee. All right, take care, everyone.